to talk to you guys a little bit today. This is actually my 11th year working with lawyers. I had a 2-month-old daughter, so I figured this is a great time to leave my job and start a new business. Why not? I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19. Never really had a lot of success. I just, it's failure after failure after failure after failure. But the thing is that I learned from every single failure. So failure is really not that bad, right? And eventually I started this business, but I was just working like crazy. I just knew it wasn't sustainable. I remember that I was at an event and it was put on by this guy named Dan Henry. Dan made an offer and he said, I will show you how to do exactly what I've done if you just hire me, right? And that's the day that I learned that you can write a check for speed. You can go faster by learning from people who have already done it. You see, let's say we're right here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to go right here. And the path from going from here to here, this is called the gap. Nice upward path, and everything's gonna be great. But is that actually what happens? No, not at all. Life is up and down and up and down. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how do we fill this gap? Over the last 11 years, I've done this. And obviously, I'm not here because the secret is you never reach here because this is the horizon. You never reach the horizon. As you're moving forward and as you're making progress and as you're progressing, we think that life will get better, and it does get better, right? So what I want to share with you today, the 8 lessons that I have learned over these last 11 years that have allowed me to go from 0 to our business is going to do multiple 8 figures this year. The first thing that I learned, you have to have a why. You will not do it for the money. You will not do it for the fancy watch. You will not do it for the fancy car, but you will do it for your why. What's it worth to be able to go on a weekday and go spend an entire day with your kids whenever you want to, right? So I want you all to write this number down, 6570. This is how many days you have from the day your child is born until they turn 18 and go off to college. 6,570 days. Now here's another crazy number, 90%. 90% of the time that you spend with your children is before the age of 18. What is your why? Why are you doing this? Who are you doing this for? While you're hustling, while you're working 60 hours a week because you're too afraid to hire somebody, because you're too afraid to invest in ads to allow you to grow your law firm, what are you missing? Every day that you do that is one fewer day that you have with your kids that you will never get back. Money comes and goes. Time does not come back. And that's the first thing that I learned, is that you have to have a why. Now, the second thing that I learned is a quote from Steve Jobs. And I love this quote because it is 1000% true. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. This approach has never let me down, and it has made all the difference in my life. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. About 2004, 2005, I wanted to be a rock star. From there, I started my first marketing agency, a marketing agency called 5 Stone Marketing. I started this website where we did interviews with bands and athletes and celebrities and musicians and things like that. That's where I learned how to do videography. That's how I learned to use a camera. That's how I learned to do video editing. And then I started Social Firestarter, which was my marketing agency. That was 11 years ago. If you would have told me back when I was playing in a rock band, when I wanted to be a rock star, that would somehow lead me to being on stage in front of 500 lawyers talking about how to grow their law firms, I would have told you you're freaking insane. Because you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. The third thing that I learned, it is never a lack of resources. It is always a lack of resourcefulness. Poor people look at a house, a car, a dream vacation, a coaching program that they know will change their life. And they say, I can never afford that. Rich people, on the other hand, look at that same house, that same car, that same dream vacation. And instead of saying, I can't afford that, they ask a question. How can I afford that? How can I pull that off? How can I get that thing? How can I do that thing? That is precisely the reason that they are rich. When I signed up for the Dan Henry program that I talked about earlier, I didn't have the money. I actually went and I took out a line of credit. I borrowed $30,000 that I didn't have. I paid it to Dan. When Dan said jump, I said how high. As a result, I am still the #1 student that he has ever had in that program. But that wouldn't have happened had I not gotten resourceful and figured out how do I find the money for this. I can directly attribute $10 million from what I learned in Dan's program. Directly, and I'm sure it's more than that, but I can just directly tie $10 million. Number 4, and this is a quote from Zig Ziglar, you can have everything in life that you want if you will just help enough people get what they want. Why do you think I do so many value videos? My #1 piece of advice, is prove you can help people by actually helping them. I spoke at a conference a couple weeks ago, and I had never met 99% of the people in that room. And I said, let me ask you a question. Who here has never met me before? We've never had a conversation, but you feel like you've known me your entire life. And I looked around as everybody raised their hand. It's because we provide value. We try to help people, right? And if you can do that same thing, you will succeed and you will reach levels that you've never dreamed of. The fifth thing that I learned is you have to jump out of the plane and build your parachute on the way down. My mom just went to Greece. She was sending me pictures the whole time. I kept seeing her post them on Facebook, and I noticed that all the architecture that she had taken pictures of, it was all ruins. My wife really wants to go to Greece, and she also wants to go to Italy. So I've been doing a lot of research on Greece and Italy, and one of the things I noticed is that the Roman architecture is all still standing. I mean, remember the picture of the Colosseum, and most of the Greek stuff has crumbled, right? Now, why is that? What I found out is that the Greeks were academics. The Romans, on the other hand, were essentially basically a bunch of dumb jocks. And what they did is while the Greeks sat around planning how to do their architecture, the Romans just did it. So they built a bridge, and then it fell down. And they're like, I guess that didn't work. I guess we should try something else. And they just kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it. Were you an amazing lawyer when you got out of law school? How did you become a great lawyer? You learn how to do the thing by doing the thing. That's the only way. You have to jump out of the plane and build your parachute on the way down. It's called the practice of law. Number 6, how can overwhelm you? I found a hack. I replaced my how with who. Who has my answers? Who can help me do this? Who is better at this than I am? Who loves doing this thing that I hate doing? Then you finally start getting better answers and you start discovering how to get things done, right? Because you don't have to worry about how, you have to worry about who can help you. You want to know my secret? Masterminds. The best part about the mastermind is just talking to everybody else in the mastermind and learning all their little tips and tricks and secrets and hacks and all that type of stuff, right? The other way is you find contractors with proven track records. That includes marketing agencies. The most costly advice that you could ever get is learning through your own trial and error. Number 7, let's talk about risk. We all say we want to avoid risk, but the reality is that there's different levels of risk, there's different types of risk, and you have to understand what type of risk you have. So there's the first type of risk. It's called eyes wide shut. The things that we assume are the safest things are actually the riskiest things for us. You see, we think risk, and we think things like skydiving and bungee jumping and things like that, but the reality is that's actually really not that risky, because before you do that stuff, you're typically going to do research, you're going to hire a professional. You're not going to go skydiving by yourself the first time, you're going to go with a professional. The second type of risk is failure. Failure is not that bad. If you fail, you lose some money, but you gain relationships, you gain experiences. You're usually better off in the end. So really, failure's not that big of a risk. The bigger risk is the third type of risk, and that's mediocrity. It's not bad enough to fail, but it's not good enough to be great either. And the reason that is so risky is because mediocrity deprives you of your most valuable asset, your time. But the biggest risk of all is safety. Safety is the opposite of risk. No, that's BS. Not taking enough risk is the biggest risk of all, because if you stay in your comfort zone, will you ever get to your dreams? You have to ask yourself, if I keep doing what I'm doing right now, will this take me where I want to go? I want you to write the following number on your piece of paper: 292-202-338. That is your odds of winning the Powerball. 10 followed by 2,685,000 zeros. That is your odds of being born. Think about the freaking lottery that we already won. Like, we're not even supposed to be here. Then we show up in the best country in the world. I used to wash dishes for $5 an hour, and now look what I get to do. Look what we all get to do. We get paid to help people change their lives. But you can't do it if you don't take risks. You can't do it if you're complacent. You can't do it if you don't find that resourcefulness. Number 8, take chances and do things that scare you. How are you going to make a difference in the world and your family? A lot of people are scared. Everybody's scared. We have hundreds of people that depend on Bill and I to feed their families. Courage is not about not being afraid. It's moving forward even though you're scared to death. So with that said, go out there and be resourceful.